You've heard people say, don't sell yourself short. Well, we're going to talk about that in this video, and we're also going to talk about don't sell yourself long either. Chuckism number 5 says, the person at the table who knows the most about the other person's business wins. We want to engage with people in order to learn why they would buy from us or do what we would like for them to do. And when we look at Chuckism number 5, we're looking at how we start the conversation with someone else. First of all, don't sell yourself short. Don't assume that the person is going to understand you, believe you, appreciate you, until you've given them some information or some reason for them to listen to what you have to say. However, don't sell yourself long either. Don't tell too much. It's too easy for us to allow the customer or potential buyer or potential friend to start asking questions about us, and we want to talk about us. Don't fall into that trap. Engage them by having them talk as much as possible. How do we do that? Well, have a 7-word overview. It's called a mission statement or a elevator statement, a 7-word overview. When you're engaging somebody for the first time, what are 7 words you could say or a 7-word question you could ask that would cause them to want to talk to you even more? And then when they seem interested, it's okay then to move into a slightly longer elevator explanation that state and elaborate. You state something and be prepared to elaborate on it depending on how they respond. And typically this can be done in about 21 words. What we're trying to do is to create dialogue with the other individual. There are 3 scenarios we're going to discuss here. One is face-to-face, so when you're engaging somebody for the first time, face-to-face. The second one is over the phone or virtually. And the third one is using text of some sort. It could be an email, it could be a text, it could be a letter, but engaging them with text. Let's get started. You want to sell yourself appropriately. Appropriately here means all we're trying to do in this initial sale, if you will, is get an agreement to engage, cause them to agree to engage with us. We don't want to be heard necessarily. We want it to be brief, this initial contact to be brief, and we need to include with them what's in it for me. Why is it in their best interest they take some time and engage in conversation with us? Look at this image here. The salesperson holding the tablet has strong eye contact going with the potential customer or individual, and they are smiling. Smiles show confidence and competence. What about the potential buyer? It looks like there's an enthusiastic response here because the salesperson has engaged them properly. All we're looking for here is an agreement to engage. Here's a sales scenario. You'll notice that the salesperson has already reviewed 2 documents from the customer's library. Their brochure, their newsletter, they talked about that with the customer, and then and only then is it okay for the salesperson to then put his or her proposition in front of the customer. We talk about them first and us second. You've seen this encounter, I'm sure, when you've gone out to eat. Here's a couple. Let's assume that they're not married. This is a relationship building moment. Who's the salesperson? Who is the buyer? Well, we would think the salesperson would be the man because he's trying to sell himself to the woman, but that may or may not be the case. He thinks he's selling by talking about himself, his interest, what he likes to do. Well, why is he doing that? Probably because she is asking the questions that stimulate that type of engagement, that type of dialogue. She's qualifying the salesperson. Is this someone with whom I would like to engage maybe longer term? She's determining his buying criteria, what's important to him. And she's prioritizing this opportunity against the other opportunities. Now, does this look any different from a B2B sales call? We want to make sure that the customer is hearing what they need to hear in order to move forward. All too often in a scenario like this, he might say something like, well, enough about me, let's talk about you. Based on what you've seen so far, what do you like most about me? And that's a joke, but you know, it happens in B2B business. The salesperson engages the customer and goes for a trial close by asking for the order a little too soon. How does this work when we're using the telephone? Here's a telemarketing person who is probably using a script. She's becoming as bored with it as many of the people that she has called. Are you likely to engage with this individual? But here's someone else on the phone, a professional, someone who is prepared, someone who knows not only sales, but knows their product, their service, and can uncover why someone else would benefit from it. Here's a telemarketing person that is even better than the previous one. And why does it strike you that this is a better relationship or a better scenario? Because it looks targeted. It's one-to-one. Let's remember, every contact with an individual is a one-on-one contact. You've had telemarketing people call you. You could hear other voices in the background, and you realize, hey, this is just a production, where you wanted to have someone who is singularly engaged with you. What about this telemarketing person? I think they've made one call too many. So how does Chuckism number 5 apply when we're using text? Whether they're going to see it on their device or they're going to receive it in an email or a letter. Again, have an opening statement that's very brief, that gathers their attention, and all you're trying to do is to buy the next few seconds. When a professional speaker walks out on stage, we know that the most we will have with the audience is about 3 minutes. And if we don't hook them in the first 3 minutes, they're going to begin drifting away. Some will actually physically get up and walk out. Well, the same is true with text. You need that bullet line. You need the hook. You need that statement that will grab them and cause them to read the rest of the message. So what do all of these formats have in common? Whether we're face-to-face or we're on the phone, we're using text, here's what they have in common. Number 1, invest your time in preparation. Invest some time in preparing. It's much better to make 10 well-prepared contacts than it is to make 100 dialing for dollars, where the hang-up rate is about 70% and the closure rate is less than 1%. When we put time and energy into preparation, we find the closing ratio goes up significantly. Avoid generic openings, especially those that are semi-generic. If you're in LinkedIn or some other social platforms, you get a response from someone or an inquiry from someone, hey, I checked you out and I saw that you're an interesting person and you're doing some exciting things. That's still generic. If they can't prove to me that they have at least been to my website or they are being specific about some of the areas where they think they might be able to help, I don't bother to respond, and you probably don't either in those circumstances. Be as specific as possible. Find out something about the individual. Use that to garner their attention. It must be targeted, and when it's targeted, you'll see greater productivity. The generics don't work. The specifics work like magic. There are 2 stages to the process for using Chuckism number 5. One is pre-call planning. What is pre-call planning? Well, before we touch the customer, whatever format we're going to use, telephone or text, we ask ourselves, what else do we need to know? In order to make a specific, interesting touch with the customer, what else would we need to know about the individual, about their organization, or about the issue that we're going to discuss with them? And then this question, what do they already know or think they already know? Because we need to understand that. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, and we may need to change their mind just a little bit. The second stage is post-call critique. If you're not doing pre-call planning and post-call critique, your productivity cannot be what it could have been if you had been doing those things. Post-call critique is simply we sit down and ask ourselves, what do we know now that we didn't know before we touched the customer? If the answer is 0, guess who did all the talking? Guess who wasn't prepared? So what do we know about them now that we didn't know when we initiated the contact? And how will this information impact this opportunity? I've gotten some information from them. Now, how will this impact this particular opportunity? Then you might want to think about also, well, how might this impact future opportunities. If you talk to someone in the home construction industry as a part of your sales pitch, and they tell you that the trend in home construction is something new, then you can start using that something new with other contacts, with other customers in that particular market or industry. So here are some questions you can use in your DIY study of using Chuckism number 5. Remember, when you get together with others in your organization, everyone watches the video and then you discuss it, magic happens. New ideas show up and you find different ways of improving your sales performance as well as the sales performance of your team. And remember, teach others.